Whoop. Hold on. Hold on. I gotta move my phone. Maybe I'll just set it here. I'll just set it here beside me. Gotta put the phone away. You know, can't have that telecommunication distraction going on. Hello everyone. If you couldn't tell by me clearing my throat. I'm still a little sick. I'm not really sick. I feel good, but I'm still getting the snot out of my box. I'm still getting the snot out of my me. Because wow, there was a lot of snot inside of me, and I just could not stream last week. That was a no-go. I had the energy for it. I wasn't bedridden. I didn't have the flu, but wow, I was sick. It sucked. Never had that much snot in my body in my life. And content warning if snot grosses you out, I guess. But here we are. No longer ill. I'm just a little congested, and that'll go away. I think hopefully it sounds better than Saturday's stream. We streamed on Saturday. I pushed through it. I wasn't very sick then either, but listening to the recording, I can definitely tell I had the sniffles. It was a sniffly stream. But this one, I don't think I've sniffled yet. Aside from that cough, I think we're good. I think we're golden. We're going to dive in here, and we're going to have a good time. We're going to talk about this book. We're going to do our Tuesday stream, and we're going to get this done. Because, a small aside here, I'm way further ahead than the streams are at this point. Me taking a week off definitely didn't help the matter, but I think I just started chapter 34 of my notes. I'm well into chapter 34. So I'm 12 chapters ahead, soon to only be 11, but yeah, I'm really far ahead. So we got to catch up. We got to catch the heck up. We have the one caveat that the parts that I'm editing right now are going to progressively get bigger. So we might catch up, but we might not. So we'll find out. Hold on, I got to clear my throat again. Hopefully that did it. Hopefully that cleared me out. Might be a running theme of today. Just having to clear my throat. It's weird because my nose, I'm breathing fine, but must just be all the phlegm or whatever. So pardon the bronchosaurus in my throat. We're going to push on regardless. And we're going to get through chapter 22 here. Chapter 22, The Artists. I don't know if this will be a thing going forward, but I thought we'd try it today considering we had a week off. Yes, thank you, Windows. I know it's saved to PC. That's great. Thank you. I thought what we'd do here is we would go through the chapter, we'd do a chapter summary, and then we'd come back to the notes afterwards. That way, I'm not flip-flopping around. I'm not going back and forth and trying to think of, wait, which part does these notes go to? Where are we again? Well, what section are we on? And I come off like an idiot. I come across like an idiot. I mean, I am an idiot, but I'm supposed to come off as a cool, smart, good person, right? That's how you get views on YouTube. That's how one should get views on YouTube, but that isn't how it works. Let's not open that can of worms. Actually, I changed my mind. I'm going to put it back. We're going to open up this other can of worms called chapter 22 instead. We're going to go through it, and we're going to do a quick chapter summary, and then we're going to come back to the notes afterwards. Okay, cool. Let's try it. So we start things off here with right where we left off after chapter 21. Does anybody, do y'all remember back that far? It was a couple weeks ago. Do you remember? I remember. I'll fill you in. Teal got pushed off a train. Surprise. It was a bad time. Teal had a bad time. So we pick things up immediately after that with Teal falling out of a train. She's tumbling down a hill. She falls down a hill. She has a really bad time. She gets pretty beat up. So that's not good. That's not good at all. She lays there for a minute. She has a bit of a pout. She has a bit of a moment where she thinks, wow, this really sucks. She gets really worried about where Lacrimosa is and where her banjo is, and she's like, wow, I'm a bad friend. Um, she's kind of just sitting there with her pain and her agony and her bewilderment and her not having a good time fullness. And then she thinks, wait, where's my hat? And she goes off and she finds her hat. Turns out her hat's stuck to a branch. So we have a bit of a diversion from her sour mood to get the hat. When she does have her hat, it dawns on her like, darn, where do I go? Where do I go? What do I do? There's some bit in here about like magic. We'll get back to that later. I'm glossing over it for now. Don't worry about it. But Teal gets to this forest. She's kind of, coming to terms with her present situation. And she starts thinking, well, geez, like, what do I do? I guess I have no other option. So if I just walk in a direction and keep walking in that direction, then eventually I'll find something. Either I'll get out of the forest, or I'll find a river, or I'll find a landmark. I'll find something, and that's better than being where I am now. So she does. She kind of just starts walking. She's in a pretty bad state. And she's kind of just stewing. She's kind of just in a bad state of mind, which, given her situation, makes sense. She's definitely going through it. But she comes to this segment and she finds a little pond. And across the pond, she spies an easel. And she thinks, wait a minute, easels don't just grow out of the ground. That's a little suspicious. And as she approaches, she's curious. She wants to check out the easel. She goes over. She sees there's a body just on the ground. And she starts getting a little suspicious. She's thinking, wait a minute. And, her initial reaction is, dead body. Her second reaction is, wait a minute, I know how bandits work. I know how cutthroats work. And then her third thought is, well, I guess I better go check on them. So she does eventually work up the courage to spy on this apparent cadaver. And there's a funny little exchange. It turns out the person on the ground isn't dead. They're just lying. They're just upset. They're just having a bit of a pout. When you're upset and you just need to lie on the ground. I don't know about you, but I do that all the time. I just lie down on the ground when I can't tolerate the unending suffering of the world, the constant state of horror that is life. But we stay silly. It's all good. So they're lying on the ground. Teal eventually convinces them that she's not a ghost, and that's all good. That's great. Soon after that, they start talking a little bit. Teal learns, hey, if you can believe it, this person's an artist. I don't know, maybe you picked it up from the easel bit, or maybe you read the chapter title, but this person's an artist. And they start talking. They start yapping. Teal's really more just interested in like, hey, can you give me directions? But the artist is having a bad time. To mirror Teal's own physical ailments, they're depressed. They're just kind of having a bad day, having a bad time, bad week, bad month, bad year. I forget the words. I'll be there for you. Right? Friends? Anyone? No? Just me? Okay. I didn't watch that show very much anyways. I don't even actually know the name of that song. Surely it's not just the Friends song. Anyway, joke aside, they start talking. The artist is sort of just giving their spiel on why they're upsetty. They kind of get on this point about like, I want to paint, but I can't paint. Until Teal's of this mind that I should just really put up with them until they're they're at a point, they're at a frame of mind where I can ask them directions. But as it stands right now, I kind of just have to put up with them. So she's trying to gather what information she can about what is upsetting the artist. And the artist basically tells her, well, I want to paint, but I can't paint because what if I paint bad? What if I do a bad painting? What if I can't replicate the beauty that I wish to encapsulate? And Teal's like, well, that's just art, man. That sucks. Like, you just gotta try, I guess. And the artist really isn't having that. Teal's response is not great. She does not pass the charisma check, which sucks. But she does fail forward, and the artist starts going on about like, okay, well, even if I do paint a good thing, it's just gonna sit around in like somebody's foyer. No one's actually gonna appreciate these landscape paintings I make. And Teal just doesn't really have a good answer for that. So she kind of just sidesteps the issue and goes, hey, speaking of, maybe you should just go home. Like, if you're upset, maybe just go home and like have some toast and have a snack, and you'll feel better, right? That's what I do when I'm upset. I go home and I eat a snack. That's what Teal's saying. I mean, like, not that I'm projecting, not that I don't do the same thing all the time. Normally, if I'm upset, I just have some toast. Teal and I are similar beings in that aspect. I'm definitely not projecting. Don't at me. Don't look at me. Just listen for now. And the artist is like, okay, well, yeah, that checks out. I've got some nice jam. I'll go eat some nice jam and toast. But Teal says, hey, your home is nearby, maybe? Could you tell me how to get out of the forest? More importantly, do you know anything about towers? And the artist at this point, Teal's trying to get them to talk about the bell tower. But the artist goes, wait, not like, yeah, I know of a tower. There's a tower nearby here, but there ain't no bell tower. And Teal goes, well, one tower is better than 0 towers, so maybe I'll take it. And she learns that, the person living in this other tower is actually something of a, an oracle. Not an oracle. We already had the chapter with an oracle. But they are a wizened individual with ample information. They are a sage of sorts. And Teal goes, okay, well, that sounds great. Maybe I'll go see them. How do I get there? How do I go there? And the artist is like, well, if you just keep going that way, you'll find the road. You'll find the road that goes through the forest. And Teal, without so much of a pause of hesitation, just goes, okay, thanks, I'm leaving. I don't actually want to talk to you. And that's basically it. Teal's just really so excited by the end of this chapter of like, oh wow, I have a direction. I have a thing. I have a place I can go. She's so enthralled by this possibility that she really just ditches the artist. They give her some information about the tower, and then she basically just goes, okay, thanks, bye. And she leaves. And that's the chapter. That's chapter 22. It's not the biggest in the world. There's some philosophical gubbins in the middle. We started off at a very low point in Teal's overall adventure, but she recovers, ? She recovers and then proceeds on her merry little way. I don't think I'm missing anything. Nothing important anyways. If there are important things, they'll come up in the notes. But there's our chapter summary, and we can move on to the notes bit. However, I'm just give me like 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That wasn't so bad, right? That was 5 seconds. I'm sitting here testifying that I'm not sick anymore. And lo and behold, my nose is running. You know what? This is an important caveat to save my bacon. I was just on my walk. I go for a walk every day. Honestly, it's like right before I stream. It's kind of awkward because normally I'm like, oh, I got to do my walk, and then rush. I go for my walk, and then I come home and eat, and then I shove a bunch of food in my face, and then I stream. So it's like it's not a good combination, but that's my life. That's why the stream's at 3 is because I walk at 2 and I like to eat. So 3 o'clock it is. Even like I know 3 o'clock in the afternoon is not a great time for streaming, but that's my life. Here we are. Hi. Hello, everyone. It's 3 p.m. That's the only time of the day I want to be here. And like, frankly, I got other things to do. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here talking to you. Just kidding. I want to be here talking to you, especially Robin. Hi, Robin. Robin's fun to hang out with. I'm not going to plug my channel, but y'all should go follow Robin for some bird content. I don't know. I don't think Robin even posts. Probably shouldn't follow them. They're like an anxious little baby. They'd get scared and fly away. What was I talking about? Notes? Right. Okay. Right. The important caveat. The important caveat here is that I was on my walk and it started raining on my way back. It just started pouring. So that's probably why my nose is a little runny, because I was just in the rain and it's very cold out. So, classic cartoon cold situation. I'm really just not doing myself any favors. So that's why I had to get up and grab a tissue. Unfortunately, I don't have a tissue model, so you're just going to have to pretend that, these books on my left side here, they're actually it's like a pile of tissues. Just a pile of tissues. And, they're fake books anyways. They're not real books. Just kidding, they're real books. This one on top is a manga, Girl from the Other Side, issue 7. The one underneath is a collection of fairy tales. Brothers Grimm, collection of fairy tales. The one on the bottom here, the big one, that's my issue of The Tale of Genji, hardcover. That's how much I like that book. Come fight me. I will fight you, and I will use this book as a weapon. Anyways, we're getting really off topic, but that's okay, because, whatever. This silly stream. It's been a couple weeks, all right? I'm allowed to ramble. What was I saying about the notes? I guess we should do them. I guess we should go through the whole reason we're having this stream. So let's do that. Let's go through the notes. Let's try to get them done. And let's try to have some fun. So we begin the chapter, like we said, with Teal tumbling. It's very unfortunate. Obviously, the action has to remain, but we need more impact. We have this funny little poem here, but as far as Teal's descent, it lacks the pain that one should be embodying while falling down a hill after being pushed out of a train. We really don't understand the ramifications. We don't get into the how big of a deal it is that Teal just got pushed out of a train. That would hurt a lot, right? That would hurt a whole bunch. We really need to dig into that. More visceral descriptions. Just this notion that Teal is hurtling, just tumbling against her will, descending this hill into the forest. That was a pretty good rhyme. Yeah, just call me Robert Frost. Don't call me Robert Frost. I'm Junco Snow. It's completely different. I don't even want to be in the same ballpark as Robert Frost. Could you imagine? God, what a legendary poet to have to contend with. Yeah, Robin Frost. That's a good one. Yeah, go put Robin in that ring. Anyone, if you didn't follow Robin the first time, now's your chance. Go follow Robin. I digress. So she's tumbling down this hill. We just need some better language to describe it. We can even use more than one paragraph. I think this pictorial paragraph, this pictorial poem, I really want to keep. I might redo it. I'd like it if initially I was trying to center it. I was trying to make it so that the poem itself would be centered, but that's more of a design thing, and I can't really accomplish it on Windows. More on that later. We get more into the how do I design a book issue later. That becomes a problem. I think in chapter 30 or something, 31, we start talking about, oh no, how do we format books? But that's a later problem. Additionally, with Teal falling, Teal's just tumbling right now. She is not on Tumblr. She is tumbling. She's falling down a hill, a big hill with branches and trees and rocks and other herdy things. And she's meant to get a gash on her face. She's meant to cut herself here. There's not really a good mention of it. We mentioned that she got cut on her descent, but we don't mention the impact of it. There should be a moment where Teal careens into a branch, gets this big old cut on her face, and then has to deal with the repercussions of that later. She should be bleeding from her face later. And we get to that in a moment where, like, she's obviously talking to another individual and they don't make mention of, like, how bloody and ragged she looks. So additionally, we need to fix that, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Right now, though, we need to include that Teal runs into a thing. Teal runs into a thing and cuts herself real bad. Please, future me, take care of that. We honestly just need one line saying she rolled into a branch and she got herself real bad. And that's it. As long as we, the reader, know that Teal got a little ouchie, cool, great. We know it's on her face. Super. Similar to the dent in her face earlier. I'm just so concerned with, and I think a big part of this was it wasn't a big deal when I was writing it, but it became a big deal later on when I was thinking, oh yeah, no wait, that would probably leave scars. That would probably hurt her. These are things that Teal is just, the anime logic can only go so far. She's not just going to walk off cuts and bruises. This is a hurdy. This is a big hurdy. The whole journey is meant to be a big hurdy, and what better way to exemplify that than for Teal to carry scars of her adventure? Because that's life for you, You get hurt, you get some scars. Cut my thumb a few weeks ago, guess what? Scarred. Just kidding. Weirdly, it didn't. If you can believe it, void flesh, whatever I'm made out of, doesn't scar. And so, yeah, I'm alright. I'm good. I'm built different, but what can I say? So that's the first thing. Hill's got to hurt. Teal's got to get a cut. Thank you, Microsoft. Following Teal's descent, we have this pause where she's really sitting with herself, with her thoughts more so. She should be a lot more haggard. She just rolled down a hill. And barely missed rocks and branches and trunks, right? Like tree trunks. She should be in a real bad state. She should be just kind of in tatters. I'm noticing a note from future me, and that's future me. It passed me to me now. But future me from the notes, and apparently I do mention the cut, but I don't do a very good job of it. And this note is me telling myself, hey, incorporate that more naturally. Which, yeah, you're right, fam. The reason I didn't notice it is probably because it doesn't read very strongly, and that's kind of what I was trying to say earlier. Is we need to make a bigger point of the cut. Teal should be laying here afterwards, ruminating on her state, which is bad. And probably part of that is being like, ooh, ow, ooh, oofy, oochie, owie. There's a cut on my face. I'm bleeding. I'm having a bad time. Wait, where's my buck? Where's my banjo? What happened to those? I gotta go find them. So she should be a little messed up. The return of her senses should be kind of a not quite a drawn-out process, but it should be more relevant to the narrative here as Teal comes to, as she's like, well, okay, I'm not dead. What do I do now? We need to incorporate the environment, the feeling of her panic, the sensation of her pain. All need to be incorporated into this segment. As it is right now, She's sniffling, she sniffles, she's like, wah, I'm hurty. We don't actually talk about how she's hurt. She's kind of just like sore. I guess, from having to be pushed from a hill. She doesn't really want to get up. We just mentioned, like, yeah, her senses return. Okay, great. Let's talk about that some more. Let's fold in her observations of the environment with the returning of her senses. She's looking around. She's smelling things. What does she smell? She smells the pine on the air, the dirt in her face. She probably smells some of the blood coming out of her right now. That's not good. You don't want to be smelling blood. She probably tastes the metallic, scents in her mouth from, I don't know about y'all. When I get hurt, usually I taste metal in my mouth. Maybe that's just a weird me thing. Maybe that's because I am a vampire. Meh. Just kidding. I'm not a vampire. Teal might be, though. Teal might be. She's got those fangs after all. But yeah, all I'm saying is we need to better incorporate Teal's recovery as well as her pain. We don't really talk about she's scared very much, which is bad. She should be really worried, not only for herself in this moment that she just got pushed off a train and she doesn't know where she is, but she should also be concerned with the idea that, oh no, my companion is gone. Oh no, my instrument. Where are they? Are they okay? Are they broken? She's got to have this little beat before she realizes, okay, wait, yes, there they are. They fell with me. I kind of tossed them aside right before I landed. And they're in one piece. They're like a little scuffed up, but they're, I can still play the instrument. I still have my friend in the lamp. We mentioned she's sniffling, she's sniveling, she's holding back the tears. She should really, we don't push this notion nearly enough that she should be on the verge of bawling. This is a really bad moment, I've been saying, sure, she's in pain. We got to describe that, but another facet to that notion is that Teal's just at a very low point. If the visualization did not clue you in that Teal is at a very low point, perhaps one of the lowest points, then maybe we need to push that a little farther. Maybe we need to just say, hey, Teal's maybe just trying really hard not to cry right now. She's in a lot of pain. She's in a lot of despair. And it isn't really until this shock of, wait, where's Lacrimosa? That cuts her off from that notion. She has something bigger than her own present situation to worry about, which is an important beat of character development for Teal. She is not sitting here concerned with what's going on with herself. We're showing this empathetic side of her that she is, despite her lacerations, her wounds, and her weariness, putting the silly little bug, her friend, putting her companion's needs before herself. She's more concerned about their safety than she is about her own personal state. Following this, there should really be a beat of frustration, something of anger, something maybe akin to rage. She would be, once the sorrow wears off, once the panic is gone, she would start thinking about how somebody just pushed her out of a train. And she'd start to get really upset about that. She'd start to get really upset about the repercussions of being hurt. I don't want to be hurt. Why am I hurt? Why does this suck? This is a very frustrating situation. Teal's been kind of shoving this notion aside that she's getting frustrated, that she's lost, that she's upset. She doesn't know what to do, and that's culminating in this aspect of frustration. I think frustration is really just the best word for it. She's frustrated. She's at odds with herself, and she's angry. She's aggrieved. She doesn't know where to direct her energy because she doesn't really have a direction for it. And so she should have a note here where, I'm like hanging out with Lacrimosa, thinking about how she got pushed off a train, grr, 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 and then we need to cut that off. We keep cutting Teal off from properly resolving her emotions, because that's just, she's not allowed. She's their little punching bag right now, all right? And that is the unfortunate aspect of this first part of the chapter, is Teal really just goes through it. Teal really just has a bad time. I don't know if it comes across, but this first part of the chapter was actually really hard for me to write, because this was one of the first moments I actually had to just do nasty bad things to Teal, because the plot demands it. Sorry, girl, you're getting pushed out of a train. I have to be evil to you. We'll get to your happy ending later. Please just bear with me. You're definitely not going to go through more bad things. I promise. I swear. Spoiler alert, she does go through more bad, cruel things. But there is a happy ending. I wasn't lying about that part. I mean, maybe if you want there to be. That's another issue for later. But what I'm trying to say is we need to cut off her rage with the idea that I lost my hat. She doesn't really get to finish her anger. Not that it should be a defining feature. It should just come up. It should just come up as a natural thing. And as a natural thing, it should be something we point at. And then while we're pointing at it, Teal goes, oh, wait, my hat. I got to find my hat. And we can use that as a transitionary note to get Teal from, so that she's not just sitting around and stewing, so that she's doing, and so that she can continue throughing. I don't think that worked, but I tried, right? You miss all the shots you don't take. So she goes and looks for her hat. That's great. We need to mention that she is in pain while she's trying to collect her hat. Right now in the book, she really finishes her wallowing. She's, where's Lacrimosa? She finds Lacrimosa. And then she just, where's my hat? And then while she's getting her hat, it's like none of this ever happened. It's like she wasn't just shoved off of a train and maybe nearly broke several bones. And honestly, at this point, she probably has like a bruised rib or something. Her clothes should be pretty ragged, covered with dirt. Her hair is just full of pine needles. She's got a big old cut on her face. She probably has some, minor cuts along her cloak. Maybe it's the high constitution that she rolled on her character sheet, but it's weird that we don't mention her legs are sore. Stretching to reach up for the hat really hurts. Walking up the hill towards the hat, her hat's kind of stuck up a tree. These should all be things that cause her little bits of pain that remind her, you just got shoved off of a train on a hill, honey. You're not going to be bouncing back. What do you think you are? A shonen anime protagonist? No. You're a low magic, low fantasy, I don't even know what you'd call. You're not even a protagonist. You're just a point of view character, girl. You don't get that buff. Maybe in the next book, but not this one. You gotta hurt. You gotta be in pain. That's how these pages work. So we gotta do that. We gotta make sure Teal is hurting. Not just in this moment, but going forward until she is at a point where she's kind of walked it off. But definitely not right now. She should be hurting right now because she's in pain. She has lacerations. She's just a little half health. She doesn't know healing spells. More on that later. She doesn't know healing spells. So Teal's trying to get her hat down. And her initial idea, her immediate thought is, I'll use magic. I'll get it down with some magic. And that's weird. Mostly because, like we've said, Draft 2 Teal is a bit more of an anomaly in this sense where her amnesia is a lot more potent. So for Draft 2 Teal to think that is quite improper. Improper? Quite improper? Yeah, I think it's improper. It's quite improper. And I don't the thing is, I don't dislike it. I don't dislike Teal thinking about magic here. I think this is a good beat for Teal to start thinking of her past. Kind of to have the notion, oh, if only I could magically get my hat down. And then she kind of thinks for a second, okay, well, wait a minute. Hold on. Isn't that a thing I used to do? Couldn't I used to do that? Wait, hold on a sec. Isn't there a spell for that? Maybe if I get out this silly little pointy knife thing and swish it around, maybe that'll get my hat down. So instead of this, right now she has this very vapid attempt. She pulls out her wand and she's trying to cast a levitation spell, which isn't bad. I just think it's kind of silly now, given the trajectory of the second draft. So instead of that, I think we can have a bit more of a flashback regarding her magic, just sort of like a vague recollection of school, of performing levitation, of using magic in a capacity that is pragmatic, and not just, for spectacle purposes. She has this moment of like, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, wait, wasn't there? Like, I remember doing magic to do things. Huh. I don't think I can do it right now. I'm kind of just coming to these memories as it is. So maybe I better not be crazy about this. But we should have a beat here where she has a flashback, where she has some memories. And we're low-key alluding to the fact that, yeah, her brain just got a little scrambled. And maybe we're getting into the memory zone. Maybe we're going to have some crazy memories spread out between now and chapter 28. And then maybe after that, we're going to get a whole bunch more. But maybe we're not going to be sure if they're memories. Or, maybe they're hiding behind the curtain of, hey, it's a dream. Ooh, it's a dream. No spoilers, though. Just maybe that's what happened. But yeah, we should give her this little beat of having a flashback, and then we can smash cut to this scene where Teal is very exasperated, very worn out, and she's just trying to smack her hat off of this tree with her banjo like it's a piñata. So we can build up like, oh yeah, memories, but they ultimately didn't serve her. They ultimately, she didn't get to a point where, oh no, oh, my magic is back, spectacular. It ultimately culminated in a moment of her having to have a big sigh and give up and grab her banjo and try to smack her hat out of a tree, which I think is a good way to just tie up this whole little beat. We're garnishing Teal with some character development here, and we're tying her attachment to her accoutrement. We're also making sure to emphasize that she is in pain. Those are all important things. That's why this beat is here. Teal gets hat and experiences all these things. Following this, Teal decides to leave, right? Like I mentioned earlier, she decides to leave. She thinks, okay, well, I better get going. I better pick a direction and just start hiking. It dawned on me while I was rereading this, why doesn't she follow the tracks? Why doesn't she just go back up the hill and follow the tracks? She knows the tracks are headed somewhere. Why doesn't she follow them? And I think the natural conclusion is she doesn't want to go anywhere near those tracks anymore. They're scary. She hates them. She just got pushed off of a thing that was on top of those things. She was already pretty uncertain about whether or not she wanted to be on the train. And after getting pitched out of one, it would probably not be at the forefront of her mind that, yes, I can follow the tracks and the tracks will lead me to civilization. She's more so inclined to think, I don't want to go anywhere near those dang things. I'm just going to keep going through the forest, actually. I would prefer being lost in a forest than to follow the train tracks. That being said, I think mentioning any of those things, like maybe she just doesn't want to go up the hill. Maybe she's tired. Maybe she doesn't want to go back up the tall hill. But we should mention that. We should mention any of her thought process that is relevant to this notion, just so we as the readers fill in that gap. We fill in that gap of like, why isn't Teal just following the tracks? Oh, it's because she's tired. Why doesn't she want to go near the train? Okay, yeah, she doesn't want to go near the train. Valid, fair. Continue on, fair, noble, my liege. So that's great. She decides to go through the forest instead. Fine, great, super. We're starting to build this notion of this strange time dysphoria. I kind of just haphazardly used the phrase, she couldn't say for how long. She couldn't say how long for sure, rather. And I just leave it at that. But I think this right here would be one of the best times to just drop one little crumb of Teal going, well, wait a minute. How long has it been? And she doesn't have to think. Excuse me. The phlegm got me. She doesn't have to think hard and long about this notion, but she should just have a pause. And it can even be an interrupted one. It doesn't have to be a full thought, but just so she starts thinking, wait, is time actually, what's going on with that thing? I actually haven't seen a clock in a while. I don't actually know what time it is. Has the sun moved? Wait a minute. Wait, hold on a minute. Right? And like, I'm already going above and beyond the Call of Duty here, but we should start bringing this up. That there is a strange sense of time here. And by strange sense of time, I mean it maybe doesn't exist. Maybe there is just timelessness here. And we don't outright ever want to say, yes, that is the case, but we do want to suggest it. And we want to suggest it in the most airy, useless way possible. Just so that readers maybe start thinking about it, but they never get a good answer. Because I'm not here to give them answers. I'm here to give them bad questions. That will haunt them in their sleep, and probably won't, because they're like, why would you worry about that? Don't worry about it. Just move on with your life. That's what Teal's doing. So that's something we should do right now. We should just drop a little crumb. Teal's going along through the forest. She makes her way and she gets to this pond, like I mentioned. We don't describe the pond very well at all, and that sucks. We need to, like, kind of ironically, given the artist's proclivity for landscapes, we don't pan to landscape here. We don't set the scene. What's wrong? What's wrong with me? There should be stuff going on here. There's not even, you don't even mention a dragonfly. You don't talk about the cattails. Surely there's a willow tree nearby or something? Like, come on. What's the scoop? Let's talk about this pond. Let's set the scene before we actually go over to the easel. In addition to that, we need to slow down this moment of Teal discovering, there's a body on the ground. We almost want this horror movie reveal where Teal's invested in the moment. She's observing, she's using her senses, right? Like we've talked about, her senses need to be engaged. They're engaged. She's into this pond. She's like, okay, a scene, cool. Wait, there's a weird easel over there. Maybe I'll check it out a little bit. And as she goes through the pond, as she creeps around the corner, as she peers through the reeds, that's when, maybe she spies a boot on the ground. Wait a minute, that's not just a boot, that's attached to a whole gosh darn leg. Wait a minute, that leg still has the rest of the body on it. What's going on here? Right? We want to build this weird horror movie scene just so that we can tie this in to the notion that, yeah, things are kind of maybe getting a little weird. Maybe not right now. Maybe this wasn't the final thing to weird Teal out. But hey, there are people laying on the ground. Teal's getting a little freaked out. We can start suggesting these things because they're going to crop up more going forward. And so to do that now, that's a good note. That's a good beat. So that's how we should, further address this pond scene. She has this weird anecdote where she's concerned, right? She's thinking about how somebody once told her about how bandits will, not even bandits, they kind of give more like a first-hand retelling of a situation where they pretended to be dead on a road And then when somebody came over to help them, they jumped up, nicked their stuff, and then ran off. Right? Classic no good Nick move in fantasy literature. I don't think that's a classic at all, but that's her anecdote. That's what Teal's thinking about here when she sees this dead body, shortly afterwards anyway. And it's dubious. I don't like that she has this weird apprehension to like, what if they jump up and steal my things, right? It's a little silly. I like that she's apprehensive here, but the reason behind it is strange to me. This whole anecdote, this whole thing in the past feels kind of weird and shoehorned in. I don't like it. I think we can rework all of this. We can take it the whole sentiment. She can maybe still be worried that this person might be a bandit. That's fine. That's kind of a natural thing to worry about. But we can also remove that. We can also remove it to paint Teal as more of the naive individual that she is. Or maybe we keep it in to paint her as the suspicious individual she is. I don't know. But it's weird. She should be apprehensive, but this whole anecdote, I don't think I jive with it. I like it, but I think it needs to go. The artist, Teal eventually gets her attention, and the artist is mistaking Teal for like a ghost. And then afterwards, they mistake Teal for like an omniscient presence, excuse me. And that's fine. That's a good bit. We also get this good sentiment of Teal's changing her altered demeanor. She's really battered. She's really tired. She really just doesn't want to put up with this silliness. And we get a good sense for that here, where Teal is just kind of rebuffing them. I think eventually she even just goes like, come on, man. Get it together. Which is good. We're getting this sentiment that she's kind of fed up with things. She's becoming impatient, where she was pretty good-natured with some of the fools she put up with. In this instance of chicanery, she's just like, I don't want to deal with this. Actually, can you just give me directions? If you're not dead, can you please just give me directions? She just doesn't want to have any of it, and that's fine. That's kind of the trajectory we want to take Teal in going forward. Is she's just kind of becoming tired and doesn't want to put up with people's nonsense. They end up having a bit of a conversation, right? Once Teal convinces the artist that she's not a ghost, neither is she a being beyond all measure, they start talking. And their conversation isn't poor. But we should really push this idea that Teal's only feigning interest. She's not really concerned with the artist's situation here, especially right now. Were she in a better mood? Okay, maybe she'd be a little more inclined to provide emotional labor. But as it stands right now, she's not having it. She's tired. She's got a big cut on her face. She doesn't want to put up with it. Which, hey, by the way, we should make mention of here, that Teal has a big cut on her face. I don't think I put this in my notes, but hey, just, as an audio note, we should put a big thing here. Teal has a cut on her face, and the artist should go, you have a big cut on your face. And Teal should go, yeah, I have a big cut on my face. But I digress. Their conversation isn't really poor, but we need to push this idea that Teal's really only feigning interest. She doesn't actually care what they're talking about. We need to work this idea that her motivation right now is that she wants directions. We need to incorporate this into the narrative a little more gracefully. Right now, it's really only it's just spelled out like, yeah, Teal's really only putting up with them because she wants directions. You don't gotta outright say it. That's not fun. We gotta allude to these things. That's part of why we're writing, is because anyone can just put that down on a piece of paper, but if we present it in a graceful and subtle manner, then it makes it worth reading, right? That's part of the charm here. Come on, don't just crap out. I do that a lot in the next bunch of notes where I just say things. I'm like, what? Why am I just saying things? That's cheating. Come on, don't cheat. Nobody likes a cheater. Hide it in there a little bit, like you hide vegetables in a shepherd's pie. You gotta hide it in there. Shepherd's pie, they say. And then they take a big bite and there's beans and corn and carrots and peas. Blah. Veggies. Blah. That's me like throwing up a little. I don't have a throw up costume. Blah. That's all I got. But yeah, just some things to keep track of. Some things to keep track of. There's just a general note here that I like how Teal speaks throughout this segment. It's really in part 3 that I get a better grasp of her tone as an individual, especially her outward voice, right? How she speaks to others. She's got this good sense of formality. She's got a good charm to her. Her word usage is clever and robust while not being overly haughty. She doesn't speak too fancy so that she can't be understood, but she does speak with an air that suggests, yes, I am educated and I am maybe probably better than you, but I'm going to put that aside for right now so that we can have clear communication. Which is good. I like that. I like that Teal talks here like she's a noble. Because, hey, maybe, I don't know, maybe she is. Maybe, have you thought about that? I've suggested it a few times. Maybe I just need a few more and you'll start thinking it. But that's just a very minor note. I like how she talks. Teal, in this segment where they're having this back and forth about like art, Teal likens it to magic, which I think is going to be hard for Draft 2 Teal, given her memory, given that her spottiness of what the arcane actually is. And instead, I think we should use this beat to infuse a bit more empathy into Teal. That she, kind of stops and imagines herself in the artist situation. And she can maybe tie that into being a magical practitioner, to being in her current state of like, oh yeah, I guess I kind of know what that's like because I am a person who's pretty sure I can do magic, but I just can't do magic right now. Which is unfortunate. Like I'm just at the whims of my present situation, which is kind of what the artist is talking about. Right? So we can use this beat to build her as being a little more empathetic. And I think doing that reads a lot better going forward. The whole notion of being ignored, as having one's work ignored, she can liken that to, one's work is an extension of themselves. And if one's work is ignored, then essentially it's kind of like just being unloved. It's kind of like living a life unloved and unnoticed and unwanted. And that sucks. I don't think anybody wants that. And that's what Teal should be thinking right now. She should be empathizing with the artist. She doesn't have to outright say any of these things, and given her lethargy, I don't think she will. But we can do a little more here to build Teal rather than just having her make this weird simile between magic and art. Oh, hello. Oh my goodness. We've got a whole nother chapter here. Okay, well that's exciting. I'm going to have to adjust the title of this video. Maybe. We'll get through this. We'll get through this and we'll decide what to do later. We're nearly freaking done. We're nearly freaking done this chapter. Jump scare. Maybe more like jump scare. Yippee! We're almost done. So let's keep pressing on here. Teal has this little scheme where, like I mentioned, she kind of she's like, okay, how do I get this person to start talking about what I want to talk about? Oh, I'll just tell them to go home. I'll tell them to have a snack and go home. She doesn't say it as plainly as that. Trust me. Just read the chapter. She's a little more conniving than what I'm describing. But ultimately, I think it's a good scheme. It could be presented a little smoother, especially with regards to her motivation. But I like the idea itself. The fact that she's like, okay, wait a minute. This Joker must have come from somewhere. And clearly they got here. on purpose. So if I reverse engineer their situation and tell them to leave, I can get them to tell me how to leave too. I can figure it out by pure happenstance, because Teal would never outright just ask. Teal would never just, hey, tell me how to get out of here. She's too silly for that. She doesn't think like that. She's got to be diplomatic about everything. And in situations like this where she really shoots herself in her foot, where she could just ask. She could have just walked up to this person and just asked. But she feels inclined to like, okay, well, you're talking to me. I have to be nice. I have to be cordial. I have to listen to your woes. You're still not talking about how to get out of the forest. Well, so I'll just connive my way into that situation. I'll just kind of shoehorn my desires into your present situation, even though she doesn't really care at all. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about here, where we don't get that sentiment. We don't get that idea that her motivations here are, I kind of just want to get out of the forest here, buddy. It's pretty clunky. We do say that eventually. It's in there, but it doesn't read very well. And what I'm trying to tell myself here is just make it read better, and also incorporate it. Incorporate it into the narrative here, and don't just have it. This is another situation where I'm pretty sure it's just a line in here that says Teal would rather have this situation happen than listen to the artist. And like, okay, you don't got to spell it out. We're smart. We can figure that out if it's in there. This is one of those times where we don't have to be real ham-fisted about things. So just do that. Just do that in the next draft, please. Thank you. Good luck with that. Good luck with figuring out how to do that properly. Not my problem. They get talking a little bit, right? And Teal has this moment of, hey, where's that bell tower? You heard a bell tower around here? You heard a bell? You heard a big bell chime? And she has this beat where the artist says, yes, but no. But actually, no. And she has this moment of like, oh boy, a tower. Oh, not the tower I'm looking for, though. And she has this peak of elation and just this trough of hopelessness. And I think this is a really good beat to exemplify how her ears move with her mood. Teal expresses herself, right? She's half an elf, so her ears are part of her expression. She got more muscles in those things. Have you seen those things? They're huge. As an individual without ears, I can't express myself with my ears. So, Teal should be all over that. And me as the writer, should exemplify that better. This is a perfect moment to have Teal, light up. Oh my gosh, you've heard of the tower? Her ears perk up. They're, more elevated than they are in a neutral position. She's excited. And then that low bork hits. She hits that trough. She's hopeless. Her hopes are dashed. And whomp. Those ears go down with her. They're deflated, almost like her expression is, right? Almost like, you've heard when somebody's really happy, their eyes smile. And when they're really sad, their eyes frown, right? Like, people are expressive creatures, and Teal is an expressive creature too, and she also has ears that do the same thing. She's also got ears that are big and pointy and probably move with her expressions. Like, that's not something she's necessarily controlling, but something we need to address is Teal being like kind of a little weird and kind of a little alien because she's half an elf. And it's just, weird fantasy things. So why don't we do that here? Come on. We've been trying to work it into the rest of the story, and you got a perfectly good beat right here, and you don't do it. I think I mentioned it like once in the upcoming chapters, if I remember correctly. It does not get brought up nearly enough. But aside from that, we get to the ending departure. It's very mild. I don't think it needs to be anything grand. Like I said, she really does just start asking about the tower, and the artist is like, yeah, the road's that way. There's a sage out there. And Teal just goes, okay, thanks. And I don't think that's terrible. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. However, the whole thing is very awkwardly written. I'm pretty sure it's just like another rewrite through draft 2 will take care of a lot of these issues. Just the pacing here is weird. A lot is like some of the word usage is strange. We don't get a good sentiment for how Teal's feeling going out of this chapter of like what the artist is doing. We just kind of mentioned, oh, they're packing up. They're packing up. Okay, great. Anything else? No? You sure? Are you really sure? Okay, well, yeah, shit, I guess the chapter's done. And then it is, right? But, this is just something that'll buff out. I think the sentiment that it's a mild farewell, that Teal and the artist are leaving on, like, amicable terms is okay, right? She doesn't need to accompany the artist to their dwelling. She doesn't need to try to shoehorn herself into their life any more than she has. She just wants to get going. She wants to get out of the forest, and that's definitely an understandable sentiment. And maybe that's something we even bring up, but as it's written right now, it's all very stony. It's it's got crags in it. We can fill these in. We can make this wall a nice cobblestone fence rather than the dilapidated form it is right now. And then, hey, guess what? The chapter freaking ends. The chapter ends, and it's chapter 23. And I think I've duped you all, because apparently in my notes, chapter 23 and chapter 22 are together. I thought it was chapter 23 and 24. So this is kind of funny that chapter 23 is just sitting right here. And we could definitely do it. Like, chapter 23 doesn't have a lot of notes. Chapter 23 is pretty short. We can run through it right now. We could do it right now. I mean, like, no one's here to tell me not to. Robin's here, but Robin's not going to tell me not to. Robin's a big... Well, they're not very big. Robin's a small little bird. I can fight them off. I can fight Robin. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe we'll just do chapter 23 right now. I was going to draw. Like, for once, I was going to actually do some drawing today. But chapter 23 is right here, so... Instead, maybe let's just quick run through this, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with chapter 23. Yeah, let's just tackle this now. Let's just tackle it now. Let me do another chapter summary for y'all. Hey, y'all, it's chapter 23. Last time we ended, it was the end of chapter 22. Do you remember a minute ago when we ended chapter 22? Well, here we are at the start of chapter 23. Chapter 23, Scout. Teal, at the beginning of this chapter, is stewing a little bit. She's upset that the artist's directions weren't very good. She's not too pleased. She's been walking for a little while, and she still hasn't found this road that they mentioned. Whether or not that's her own fault, whether or not that's because it's a lot further than she expected, doesn't really matter. She's walking along, and she's walking through the forest, and she starts getting a little unnerved. She starts getting a little stressed out because she starts thinking, wait a minute, I'm hearing things behind me. And at first she dismisses this. She's thinking, okay, well, it's just a critter. It keeps going, and she starts thinking, okay, well, it's just my imagination. Like, I'm clearly just thinking things here, because I turned around and there was nothing there. I turned around and there was no more noises. There's no critter. I'm just hearing things. And it gets to the point, it culminates to this point, it reaches this point. I've said culminate at least like 8 times in this episode. I'm sorry, I guess it's just the word of the day. Word of the day, culminate. I'm probably going to throw up like a definition in the middle of the screen. I'm probably going to throw up. Yeah, I might throw up. I'm still pretty sick. Just kidding. So Teal does reach this point where she starts thinking, I'm certain there is something following me. I can hear it. I can feel a presence creeping up on me. What gives? And she freaks out a little bit. Right? Her heart starts beating really hard. This is the first instance of the heartbeats that we officially get, that we are trying to maybe start building up a little later. And this is great because we use if we flash forward to the parts I'm working on now, this motif gets brought up at least once or twice a chapter, where Teal is just constantly freaking out a little bit, right? She's gone from POV character to horror game. Well, she's still not a protagonist. Horror game POV character. She's like the one of those people from thank you Microsoft. She's like one of the people from the Amnesia series. Which, hey, I mean, now that I say that, suspicious, don't you think? But anyway, she starts getting a little riled up, and she's certain she's being followed, but she can't see what's following her. She can't really figure it out, so she just decides, I'm gonna leg it. I'm gonna book it. I'm just gonna start running. So she's running, and through her mania, through her hysteria, she ends up running into somebody, just completely blindsided by them trekking through the woods, and she essentially bounces off of them, just boing, rebounds off of this person. And in this moment, she goes a little feral, she goes a little crazy, where she like actually pulls out her knife. She's like, I hit something, maybe it's the thing that's been following me, I'm gonna get him, right? And she pulls out her knife, and she like has a little moment of being pretty freaked out. And that's cool, that's fine. Turns out the person she ran into is pretty okay with it. They're a little frazzled, but they're like, whoa, hey, easy there. Are you all right? Are you okay? And Teal's like, well, I mean, I guess. What are you doing here in the middle of the forest? And the person she meets, lo and behold, guess what? It's the scout. And the scout is just completely uninterested in talking to her. They don't give a hoot. They don't care what Teal says. They're just like, oh, I'm out hiking. This is what I do. I hike. By the way, I want to go. Bye. I want to keep hiking. And Teal spends the majority of this chapter just desperately clinging to the scout and being like, hold on, wait a minute. I don't want to deal with being alone again. You got to stay here and talk to me. That's what everyone else in this book has done. You have to stay here and talk to me. And the scout's like, no, actually, I don't think I will. I don't think I want to talk to you. Have a good day. So the scout just keeps trying to leave, and Teal keeps trying to get them to stay. Essentially, their conversation revolves around the notion of like, okay, well, what do you do? Everyone here does a thing. What do you do? And the scout's like, I don't really do things. I just kind of walk around. I guess I scout around. I scout out things. I look at things. And that works its way towards two things. It works its way towards Teal asking for directions, like a good, sensible being for once. She learned her lesson from the last person, and this time she's just like, I need directions, please and thank you. Could you help me? And the scout's just like, yeah, head the other way, past these landmarks, you'll be right as rain. Have a good day, bye. And Teal eventually, it's like pulling teeth, but she eventually gets them to talk about... She doesn't really even question them about their ethos, about their way of life, but they kind of end up mentioning like, okay, well, I walk around a lot and I look at things because I don't like staying in one place for too long. Because when you stay in one place for too long, you get settled down and you don't get to experience new things, and that's boring. And Teal kind of rebuffs off of this, but she digests it at the same time, where she's like, I guess, yeah, you really just do have to keep moving forward in this crazy world, don't you? If I get stuck here, then I'm never going to go home. And I don't want to not go home. But isn't it kind of whack that you're not stopping for anything? And, she's kind of asking him, like, don't you remember this? Don't you remember seeing anything? And the scout regales her with some flippant remarks, like, oh yeah, I saw this. I saw that. And Teal's, kind of concerned. She's like, okay, well, what about after that? And, I don't know, I forgot. It wasn't really that important. I wasn't thinking very, very hard about it. She asks them, don't you ever want to settle down? And the scout's just like, no, I don't, actually. I don't want to settle down because, yeah, if I settle down, then I'll get bored. And why would I want to live a boring life when I can see new things? When I can constantly be enraptured by the new? And Teal thinks that's pretty whack, but she got some directions, and she's just like, okay, well, yeah, I guess you can go. Have a good day, I suppose. And then she's alone. And she has to deal with what's going on. And the end of this chapter is basically just her reflecting on what the scout just said. And if any of that holds any weight. And then she used those directions to be on her merry way. And that's it. That's the crux of chapter 23. We'll dive into our notes here quick and get it all done and dusted with. And then once we're done and dusted, hopefully it doesn't take 50 minutes. If it does take 50 minutes, I apologize. But if it doesn't, great. Awesome. Maybe we'll do some drawing. Maybe. We'll see. I don't really have anything great to draw. Like I'll probably just doodle. But let's see. Let me have a small sipperoo of water first, actually. That was not a small sip. I choked. I choked on my water really bad. It's okay. We stay silly. We stay living. It's good. I'm alive. I'm good. It didn't make it on stream. I'm muted, right? So it doesn't count. I'm only ousting myself for comedic relief. So here we are at chapter 23. We begin with a moment of irritation, followed by introspection. While these beats aren't bad, I'm going to summarize my own notes, actually, instead of just reading them off verbatim. But that is the notion, right? The beats here aren't bad. This irritation isn't bad. The introspection isn't bad. We lack Teal's senses. Let's bang the gong again. Crash. Where are Teal's senses? Why aren't we talking about what she's seeing, what she's feeling? Is she not still in pain? She just rolled down a hill. Me from the past, she has a big cut on her face, and you're telling me she doesn't feel that? She's not ruminating on how much she's in pain right now, how much she's hurting? She is tired, right? How is her amnesia fitting into all this? Isn't she worried about her memories right now? I think I coughed so hard that PNG Tuber crashed. It sure did. God, PNG Tuber, you're such a piece of junk. Hold on. Piece of junk software, I swear to God. Did you know that PNG Tuber is made in the same game engine that web fishing is made in? The more you know, am I right? The more you know. Let me get it started again. I don't know why it runs as a game. I mean, I do know why it runs as a game, because it's a simple, lightweight piece of software that it works. It works good. Hold on, it's running again. I gotta make sure it's using the right mic, though. That it's cooperating with my friend, my good friend Michael. Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm back. The depths of the void cannot contain me for long. Even if the connection between our realms is hampered, I will always find a way to return to yammer on about a book I wrote. But I digress. Where were we? Teal senses, right? Much as I'm frustrated with PNG Tuber, Teal should be frustrated with what's going on with her life, right? With this current phase of her journey. We don't talk about any of that. We don't mention any of these things. She just kind of stews a little bit and is upsetty, and that's unfortunate, because this would be a good beat, right? We have this good beat of introspection, and then she starts noticing things that maybe she's going a little crazy. Maybe she's going a little nuts. No, it's okay, girl. You're not going crazy. I'm trying to reverse gaslight Teal here. You're so valid, Queen. You're so real for having hysteria. You deserve to be off your little rocker a little bit. You're absolutely the most sane individual I've ever met, Teal. You pop off, bestie. For real, on God. But yeah, we don't mention these things, and that's unfortunate, because we could, and that would work better into the narrative. She has this moment where she's comparing the city to the forest, where she's thinking, oh, well, the arrow here sure is nice. things out here aren't as bad as maybe I thought. Maybe I don't miss the city as much as I did. And I think this would be a better point in the narrative for Teal to be struggling with her memory. She should be thinking, hey, why is there this big gap in my head? Why can't I remember things? This would be a great beat to have her just kind of ruminate on her past. And reflect that against her present memory. Why is there a big chasm in my memory? Why can't I remember things? Why do I remember getting here? Why do I remember everything since I've got here? What the hey? What the hoo-ha? Why do I remember living in a place? Barely. Why don't I remember my sister? Why don't I remember my mom? What about that other guy? I don't want to think about him. I don't want to think about the other parent, the other parental figure. Throughout here, when Teal's noticing her surroundings, right? I don't want to completely detach the idea of her taking in her surroundings. I just want to better incorporate her lack of memory into this segment. I think it would read better than her sitting around and weighing the city's atmosphere against the forest. I don't think that notion's bad. I just don't think it needs to be here. And instead of that, we should have something that's more narratively driven. Throughout this segment, though, Teal starts to notice, the light's weird. Hasn't it been overcast for several days now? What feels like several days? What might be several days? Wait a minute. That's a good beat. This is a good point in the story for Teal to start noticing, wait a minute, why is it always cloudy? What's going on with that? What's going on with all the clouds? What's going on with the light always being the same? Wait a minute, there aren't shadows here. What the heck? What's going on with that? So we should keep that. She's swamped by her thoughts. And then she starts hearing things. Like I said earlier, it's a great beat to slash through. Teal's kind of maybe drowning. She's smothered by her ruminations here, by her consternation. And then she's ripped out of it by suddenly going, wait a minute, am I being followed? Her paranoia, the seed of her paranoia sprouting, of this hysteria sprouting, is a great method to rip her out of her musings, out of her meditations. And so that's how it should be. She should be plucked out of those by being spooked. In this way, we have her insanity kind of balancing her desire to remember. And this is something that keeps happening throughout the rest of the book, is that she's balancing these sensory inputs that may or may not be factual, they may or may not be real, against her desires and her attempts to stitch her memory back together. To, literally reach into that chasm of her mind and pull something out and then slot it into the proper place. Like she's building a puzzle with pieces that she fishes out from the bottom of a lake. She doesn't really know where they go or what the full picture is, but she's got to find somewhere to put them. And while she's doing this, she's being attacked by the Loch Ness Monster. No big deal. No big deal. Regular, everyday half-elf things. Totally normal, totally reasonable things that have happened. Generally, though, this right behind me, this something's following me segment needs better pacing. It kind of speeds by, unfortunately, right? These few paragraphs here is all it is. That's all the I'm scared segment is, and this should be more of an important segment. This is something we should linger on for a few moments, more than a handful of paragraphs anyways. It's just strange that we're ripping her out of these feelings of longing, of wistfulness, with this beat of strange, unnerved, as if she's being watched, as if she's being tailed. Like we can't at this point in the story quite say that, unfortunately, with such certainty, because later on that becomes like we're kind of developing a bit of a theme here, and for us to develop the theme, we need to start it somewhere. So we can't just start it at the end. We can't just say Teal feels like she's being watched, right? So we need to ground this notion and build it up. And this is where we're building it up. And right now we're not really building up anything. We're kind of just speeding to the point of, Teal feels like she's being watched, but there's nothing there. Ooh, and then she gets scared and then she runs away. That's not fun. That's not fun to read. We're getting into horror territory here. We gotta, come on. Let's do the horror things. You can't build horror. You can't just throw somebody into a horrific situation. That's not how it works. That's not how horror works. Horror is the ever-present sense of fear. What you're describing, jumping into the deep end, that's terror. That's different. That's just reaction. That's not fun. There's nothing fun in that. But I digress. We mentioned something of ringing ears in this segment, that her ears start to ring, and that's kind of like, it ends up being sort of a tell for Teal's maybe going a little nuts. We should start that earlier. That Teal's ears are starting to ring, that it is maybe not just completely a product of her exhaustion. In fact, like, I don't even know if, I just got really excited about exhaustion there, pardon me. I don't know if we mentioned this earlier on, that Teal is getting tired and that her ears are starting to ring. That she's really starting to have audiosensory hallucinations. I think, now that it's on my mind, I think we did mention something sort of like that outside of the architect's office. Do you remember that scene where the hallway was getting weird? I think we kind of touch on that a little bit there, but, let's bring it back. Let's build it up a little bit. We were just talking about building up themes. Here's another one. Let's build up this theme. Yeah, we need to build up this notion that Teal's getting a little messed up. And it's included in here, and that's fine, but from the point in which it is introduced, it needs to be a thing up until this point. It can't just be, oh yeah, that one, and then again now. It needs to be something that crops up throughout the narrative, or else it just falls flat like it kind of does right now, where it's just like, ringing ears, ooh, scary. From this point onwards, it's great, because it happens again and again. But if we're going to bring it up earlier, which we should, it needs to be a very subtle mention until this point, until we're like, okay, yeah, wait a minute, Teal's getting the weird ringing ears and she's going kind of loopy. There's a connection here. And maybe I should lock this in my reader brain for later. Like, okay, I got to know these things about Teal, Miss Evergarden, and her ringing ears. So that's great. That's good. She freaks out a little bit and she goes on her way. There's a weird bit here where there's kind of an overwhelming silence. We build this anxiety of Teal's that she's being followed to this overwhelming silence. And that should be something that is holistic throughout this beat of horror. It shouldn't just be at the end. It shouldn't just be heaped at the end as very awkward. When there's 8 awkward things, awkward. It's very weird. It's not subtle at all. It's not good. I don't like it. It's very bad. I don't even want to do an impression of that fucking blowhard. Pardon me for swearing on a Draft Diary stream, but I'm mad that fascism is blatantly existing on my border country. Makes me sad. End note. Silence at the end, bad. Silence throughout, good. Very good. Do that more, please. Um, Teal runs into the scout and she bares her fangs. There's a beat here where she bares her fangs. She, like I mentioned earlier, she goes a little feral. She gets a little crazy, and this is part of it, that she bares her fangs. Surprise, Teal has fangs. Teal got pointy teeth, because that's an elf thing. Just elf things. When you're out and about, and you're an elf, and you got pointy teeth, that's an elf thing. So she bares her fangs, and we don't really bring this up earlier. This really just comes out of left field. We haven't really had a good moment to touch upon Teal's Fey traits, which is unfortunate, and we should. And this isn't really me saying do it now, but could we maybe try in the future? Could we maybe try to incorporate that Teal has a slightly different physiology than a human? She is neither human nor elf. She has traits of both. This runs parallel with the idea that her ears move when she emotes. Part of her body just is elfy, right? And as that stands, she has elfish features, and we don't really talk about any of them, and that's weird. This kind of comes back to bite me in the butt later on, where I mentioned Teal can see in the dark pretty well, but I never throughout the book ever drop any hints that she is just in the dark, and she's like, oh, this is fine. This is okay. My eyes can actually see in the dark pretty well. Or, like, well, there's other stuff, but let's not get into it. Just let's make mention of the fangs earlier on, okay? Right? Because these are important things that are part of her physically. And, they're not things we need to dwell on, but especially because, like, the aspect of the Fae don't play a big role in this book. They play a marginal role at best, but it's something we should mention. But yeah, like I said, we don't dwell on it. They're important parts of Teal, and as important aspects of Teal, they should be brought up. They can maybe be glossed over a little bit, like we don't got to dwell on it. Well, why does Teal have pointy teeth? It don't matter. Let's move on. Teal's got pointy teeth. Next question. Teal's got wiggly ears. Next question. Let's go. Teal's got long, dainty fingers. Next question. Teal's really weirdly slender. Okay, I don't care. Let's move on. Right? But we need to mention these things, and that they're traits of the Fae. Because as it stands right now, we just bring them up, and I'm like, we point at them and go, oh, by the way, that's a Fae thing. And I just have to, leave the readers with that. And that's not nice. That's not good writing. Just pointing at a thing and going, oh, this is this, by the way. Let's move on. That's bad. That's not good writing. We have to describe Teal as these things and then mention why she is that way. Oh, it's because she's half an elf, dummy. It's because she's half of an elf because her dad was an elf. And her mother was a human, all right? The problem solved. Mystery solved, gang. Let's hop back in the Mystery Incorporated vehicle, the Mystery Man, and head on out of here, all right? We did it. High fives all around. Next point, right? She's talking to the scout, and there's a weird subtle reference that the scout is a dude, but we never say it. We never outright say, oh yeah, the scout, they're a man. Like other characters we very overtly refer to as he. Others we very overtly relate to as she. When someone's gender doesn't matter, they're overtly related to as they. That's why when we refer to Teal as the castaway or the half-elf, she becomes they, because it doesn't matter in that instance. But when she's Teal, she's Teal. That's who she is. But if she's just the half-elf, then that's what they are. Suddenly it's not as important that their gender is part of their character. But with the scout, initially it doesn't matter. It's not really that big of a deal. But is it a big deal? I don't know. There's a weird stab here. There's this strange notion that men in the forest have nothing to fear, which it doesn't necessarily say yes they are a male, but it does allude to it. It definitely bars them off from being female. This is more just like an open idea. I don't think it's a change I'm going to make. It's just weird. It could be more of a thing. It could be like we could drive home a point of gender division here, of like gender inequality, that the scouts just tramping along and doing their own thing because, yeah, of course they can. They're a dude. They can get away with that. That's what the patriarchy does. He has nothing to fear because he's a man. And man just do man thing when man want. You know? You dig? But yeah, like I said, I don't know if this is a thing. It could be a thing. I don't know if it needs to be. And if it were to be, I think it would be kind of more like a gentle. I don't think it would be a stab. It would be more like a nodding a head to the side and going, "Man, am I right? Males, am I correct, fellow genderless beings? Am I right? Please validate me." Well, just kidding. I don't need your validation. I'm fine. I don't need your genders. I'll pack them up and send them back. Give me my money back. Don't need no gender. What's that? Sounds like something you'd buy off a Tumblr. I'm just alienating myself from like any community I could possibly latch onto. It's Junco Snow, everyone. Hi, the content creator that everyone hates. Just kidding. That's Jake Paul, isn't it? Moving on. The scout, when they make an appearance, they don't have a very solid voice. Not that they need an accent or anything, but I think that could be a way to improve upon their personage. If they were like, had an Australian accent or a very Canadian way of speaking, that would do wonders for tying them together as a holistic character. Right now, the way they speak is kind of all over the place. They have something of just like a very normal way of talking, unfortunately, which makes it hard to ground them as a character. So just an idea. An accent might help. I had here too that maybe they sing. Maybe they're singing a little as they walk along, because that's like a hiking trick, to whistle or sing as one hikes to make one's presence known, especially to the wilderness at large. Like, is more of a thing to, you don't want to spook deer. You don't want to walk in silence and spook an animal and then they charge you, right? As a human wandering through nature and not doing animal things, you want to make your presence known so that the animals get out of your way. Maybe not the best for sneaking, but when you're hiking, you're typically not trying to remain undetected. So it would make a lot of sense here for the scout to make some noise, to be maybe humming, to be whistling a little bit, to maybe having a little song. This does kind of go against their character, like their personality, but it does go with their moniker, with their way of life, almost, right? Like, they as an outdoors person, they come across as a very outdoorsy person, or at least they should. They should know these things. This would be a thing that they would just do. So it doesn't have to be really in character for them. It can just be part of their being, part of the activity. So that's an idea, and now that I'm saying it out loud, I feel like something like whistling fits the bill a bit better. It's not so sing-songy. It's not Tom Bombadil walking through the woods. It's just a hiker making noise. Whatever, that's fine. And maybe they just have noisy things on them. Maybe they've just got like pots and pans on their backpack that go clatter, clatter, clang, clatter, clatter, clang, and scare away the wildlife. Maybe it's something kind of inorganic like that. It's not even them making the noise. It's just part of their being. So additionally, right, so Teal asked for some directions. And right now, the directions that the scout gives Teal aren't very good, but I think they should be even less descriptive. We should just paint the scout here as being totally inept, just basically unable to recall the last 10, 15, 20 minutes of their life. This moment for Teal should be like pulling teeth. She's just got to go in there and be like, what do you mean by go past the boulder? Like, there's rocks all over the place here. What do you mean funny tree? What does the tree look like? Give me some details. What like, does it have leaves on it? What kind of tree is it? I'm pretty good with trees. Is it a maple? Is it an oak? Is it a birch? Is it an elm? No? Poplar? Ash? Anything. Give me something to work with. Come on. Cedar? Birch? Red pine? I'm running out of trees. What else we got? Oh, whatever. It's not important. This bit's already fallen over. Somebody yell timber. This bit's going down. But you know what I mean, right? The scout should be a little more hopeless here, and Teal should really have to work for her information. And that's good. That's fine. After this, the scout tries to escape, and it almost appears as though they just vanish. And that's not good. That's not really good. I like the idea that they are willing to take the opportunity to just leave at a moment's notice, but we should really give them an out. They might, maybe they gesture out towards the direction that Teal needs to head in, and when she turns back, she realizes, oh, they're gone already. They've disappeared. So we need Teal to be distracted for the scout to have the opportunity to just leave, to just vanish out of nowhere. Teal has this moment where sorry for the pause, I was trying to interpret my note. Teal has this moment where so she's getting directions. The scout gives her directions, they're awful, and then they try to leave. Teal's initial interception here is kind of a devious one, right? Where she's she wants something out of the scout. She's like, no, I need directions. I'm stopping you from leaving. The scout inevitably tries to leave again. The second time should be one out of desperation. And we need to build it up as that Teal doesn't want to be alone right now. She wants to keep the scout talking as a sense of security. We need to just essentially make her fear more apparent, that she doesn't feel comfortable walking through the woods alone again, especially after what just happened. She wasn't terribly fond of running into an individual in the middle of the woods, but now that she can see, like, okay, I'm pretty sure this person isn't an aspect of my hysteria. I want to keep them around for just maybe a little longer, just until I chill out, just tell me about yourself. Do you come here often? Do you come to the forest very often and scare small half elves? I would hope not. I would hope you don't do that often, because that would be creepy. So she should have this fear that's worked into her current state. As it stands right now, she doesn't sound very desperate. She just sounds like she's being annoying, and that doesn't read very well. Let's see here. Okay, right. So they describe themselves. The scout does. They describe themselves as something of a scout, and this brings on a notion of Teal remembering Azure. And I unfortunately I still think it's too early to be throwing that dart and hitting the bullseye on Azure. I don't think Teal should have that perfect recollection of, like, oh, a scout? That's kind of like what my sister used to do, right? Like, where's this guy's horse? Are you part of the cavalry? Are you scouting for a military outfit? Like, why are you scouting? Why did you say scout, right? And Teal's mind immediately goes to Azure, and I just think it's too soon still. I think it's too solid, but I think we can nod towards something Azure shaped. We can have Teal pick at the aspects of, like, oh, wait a minute, that sounds familiar. Like, scouting, right? Like, shouldn't you be on horseback? Isn't that a horseback thing? Isn't that like an army thing? And she can even say these lines. She can bring up these aspects that she thinks are familiar with the notion of scouting. That, like, oh, are you out here looking for an enemy? Is there about to be a battle? Should I get out of here? And we can use these as little droplets that suggest Azure related things, but outright mentioning Azure, unfortunately, I think it's just still too soon. Which stinks, because basically I'm ripping Azure out of this book so that I can jam her in later on when it's more important. And it feels bad, but it works. The pacing just works better. We don't get a good sense for how the scout actually is, like physically. We're not told really anything about what's going on with their body. Teal runs into them and bounces off, so we get the sense that they're more of a sturdy individual than Teal is, but we don't get any sense of like, how big are they? Are they tall? Are they broad? Are they carrying anything? In my mind, they're supposed to be carrying this huge backpack, and they're a pretty broad individual. You know, they're very well built. They're not, they're not chunky. They're not a bodybuilder. They're just a very like barrel-shaped individual. We don't get any of that, and that's really unfortunate. So we need to build the scout as a character. Like physically, we need to put them in space. We need to work on their voice. I am turning into Dracula here. What is going on? There's a tie-in with that D&D campaign that I feel like I could make. Torbeck, right? That's their name. What is going on with me? Right? I don't know. I don't think that's the real line. Robin will know what I'm talking about. Robin will have a good laugh. That's all that matters. Robin's the only one frickin' here anyways. The rest of you are really dropping the ball. No, Torbeck's the one who gets eaten, right? Torbeck's the one who they bite at the end, and then I don't even want to go look it up on YouTube. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Robin will tell you the name. Robin's talking about it in chat. But we need to build the scout as a character. We need to work on their voice and their physical placement, their physical being in this world. So like we mentioned earlier, the scout has this very future-focused ethos where they don't want to stay in one spot for too long because they're concerned with what's going on in the future. They want to be proceeding towards their goals at all times. And Teal's reaction to this is not bad, but it should be a little more poignant. She should have this sentiment that she doesn't like it, but she totally gets it. That she totally understands where they're coming from, and she doesn't like that. She doesn't like that aspect, that she's like, oh, wait, no, I get it, but I hate that. I feel grimy knowing what you're thinking and relating to you in something, like on a point that I think is disgusting, but I ultimately can't eschew for myself. I can't get rid of that feeling in me. So she should have this like kind of maybe a bittersweet moment of despair when she's rationalizing their ethos mentally, when she's empathizing with him. Like, empathy is it's not always a great thing. Sometimes you get moments where you're like, oh, I empathize with you, but I wish I didn't because I would like to be a better person than that, right? And this is definitely one of those moments. Additionally here, the scout kind of recalls the... Oh, this is just some nitpicking. When Teal was asking about interesting destinations, why didn't they mention it earlier? It's just strange to me. Why didn't they mention it earlier in the when Teal was asking about interesting things? They just totally gloss over it. Wouldn't a big tower in the middle of nowhere be a pretty big landmark for somebody who's always looking for new and interesting things? I don't know. I guess not. We can kind of have this as a notion of like, oh, well, one last thing. Which is me saying there is a moment. There's a moment here of like, oh, one last thing before I leave. Yada yada yada. That we could incorporate this idea of the Sage's Tower into that thing. Like, oh, for the Scout, yeah, whatever, a big tower in the middle of nowhere, that's just an afterthought. I forgot about it until now. Like, all right, we can chalk that up, but it's weird that either they should mention it earlier or they should mention it now, and it makes more sense for them to just tack it on as an afterthought. This paces their kind of ending exchange a little better because it has an up where Teal's learning, wow, yeah, they did learn of the Sage's Tower, and then kind of this downer where the Scout has this declaration of like, yep, I'm just going, by the way, I'm leaving. There's nothing really here for you, like, I'm out. What, you know, the end result of the Scout's ethos of just like, no, I'm fine. I don't want a place to call home. I just want to keep going. I'm just going to keep going. And by the way, I'm leaving. Right? We have this downer moment, whereas just before, Teal can be learning like, yeah, the Sage's Tower is out there. Teal can be grasping at a goal in her life for once. Unfortunately, the Scout doesn't really give her any good details regarding the Sage's Tower, but hey, it's better than nothing, right? So we get this kind of up and down. We get this good flow going throughout this section. And thus we come upon the end. We're in the ending part here. We're in the ending segment. The ending paragraphs really aren't bad, but they're lacking a little. If we want to dwell on the quiet that Teal is left in, then let's dwell on the quiet that Teal is left in. She's trying to calm herself, right? She should have a brief respite here. Is it respite? I feel like we already did this bit. Whatever. She's going to have a moment to herself here where she can talk with Lacrimosa. And if that's what we want to do, then let's put it in here, right? Right now it's just mentioned in the last two paragraphs that she's thinking about doing these things. Maybe she does these things. Maybe it happens. Let's just frickin' do it, right? Let's just put Teal in this situation where she can have a moment to catch her breath. She can have a moment to ground herself a little bit before proceeding on through the forest. Because she deserves a little pause. She's in pain. She's just coming off of a crazy anxiety kick. She should have a breather, right? We get the sense that Teal calms herself and then thinks of Lacrimosa, which really doesn't make very much sense. Her sentiment towards her companion right now should be a little more immediate. That's all I'm kind of saying here. She should really be more concerned, right? She's developing this very immediate concern with her companion going on, especially throughout part 3, where she's showing a lot more genuine compassion, like, Lacrimosa, I hope nothing happens to Lacrimosa. Like, whatever, my bodily harm is not as important as their bodily harm. And whether or not that's because she views the bug as being that integral to her life right now as like a very close friend, or because she's worried that it's a little buggy. It's a tiny little bug and it can get squished and she's got to protect. She has to protect because Lacrimosa cannot attack, right? I think that's how that meme went. No, it didn't, but whatever. But yeah, we get some weird pacing issues here regarding her concern with Lacrimosa. And maybe we can tie this in. Maybe we can tie this into the notion of like Teal being concerned with Lacrimosa, and that's when we get the first beat of the Scout just going like, okay, well, I guess I'll leave. You seem to be very concerned with your lantern right now. I will use this as an opportunity to leave while you're not paying attention. Mind you, that's like a few pages ago. But yeah, that's something we can do. And hey, guess what, everyone? That's it. That's the end of chapter 23. We did a double whammy this week. Hooray! Unintentional. My bad. I thought it was only one chapter this week, but I guess I wrote 2 in one note. Hooray! We did it. We're done. We succeeded. We beat the writing. Unfortunately, it is 10 minutes to 5, and there's definitely not enough time for drawing. I apologize for that. We had enough time for drawing if I were to only do one chapter, which was the plan, but oops, I guess we'll just have a big episode this week and have a normal one next week. Next week, we're going to take a look at chapter 24, and I promise you chapter 24 is going to be a standalone because we did the segment I thought was tied with it today. So hopefully next week we get to do some drawing as well. We'll do chapter 24, we'll check out the florist and see what that's all about. We'll see what other kind of crazy shenanigans Teal gets into. But for right now, I'm going to call the stream here because there's no point in prolonging it any further. I could yap, but to be honest with y'all, I got to run to the washroom real bad. I had to pee when we started this chapter 23, so I got to go crazy bad. No shame in admitting that. I've been holding it for a while now. So pardon me when I make this outro very quick, very lean by saying thanks for coming. Appreciate it. I hope this recovery draft diary was worth it. We really went all out. There's a lot of content here. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Hopefully you all have a good rest of your whatever. And as always, eat a good thing. Because Lord knows you got to eat a good thing to keep up the dopamine. That's what keeps me going these days. Just good food. Swing by next week to check out chapter 24 with us. We'll be doing a draft diary. Like I said, hopefully we draw. If you're looking for game content, we're probably going to be playing games this weekend. I haven't decided if we'll play Splatoon or try out something else, but hey, just, drop by Saturday morning, see what's up. And if we're playing something good, hang out for a while. And if we're not, then you can just bail. Essentially, if I don't think of anything good, it'll be Splatoon again. But if I do think of a good thing, then it'll be the good thing. For now, though, thank you all for coming once again. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.